Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in data about Kagurabachi, chapter number 86. This chapter is titled Quickening. And I don't know if I just have no reading comprehension or media literacy or anything like that, but I have no idea why this chapter is called Quickening. I think there are much better chapter titles for this chapter. I mean, there's this whole idea of the word together that really emanates a lot of feeling and power in this chapter, along with the whole idea of standing up, or I don't know, maybe even the whole idea of let's go to Tokyo. There are so many better chapter titles I can think of this chapter besides for Quickening. I mean, the word quickening isn't even used as a word in the chapter as far as I'm aware. It's just this whole idea of we are now quickening up the pace or something. I honestly don't know why this chapter is called Quickening. And the more I sit here and think about all of the Kagurabachi chapter titles, the more I just simply get confused. I mean, some of them make perfect sense, others like Quickening. I don't know, is Chihiro going to quickening his demise? Are we quickening the end of this series by one chapter? Now we're hey, we were on 85 1 week ago and now we're on 86. I really don't know what the whole idea here is, but either way, last week I released a video that was titled My Concerning Thoughts on Kagurabachi chapter number 85. And going into this chapter, you may be thinking, oh, so what are your concerning thoughts this time? Because, I mean, we don't really see anything else. We stay with Chihiro, we stay with Samura, Iori, the Mosby, and of course Ikora, who is still here for some reason. And I love that fact even gets brought up in this chapter. And a lot of you might be thinking, so what's wrong with this chapter? Why do you don't like it? And I'm gonna be real, I love this chapter of Kagurabachi. I think this one is a really good time, a good way to wrap up this arc. And really, I can do as much sitting down here trying to reason out my thoughts on why I didn't like last chapter that much. And simply, I think it comes down to, I did not have the reaction that I see everybody else having when it came to that moment in Kagurabachi. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, Samura's opened his eyes. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a good moment, but I just didn't have that big, massive reaction. I tried to tell myself, oh, maybe I'm just not the biggest fan of Chihiro Samura or any of those characters. And I do like them, I think they're fine characters, but to be honest with myself, I am much more invested in Hakuri Aruha's story and their characters instead of characters like Chihiro and Samura. Though I don't like these characters, so I think they are bad, not in the slightest. But I do like some other characters in this series more. But before we can talk about this chapter, I sort of just alluded to what happened last time in Kagurabachi, but last time we had this whole idea of, okay, Chihiro versus Samura is continuing on its steady pace. Chihiro is able to come through, use the intent to make a little chip into the Tobimune Enchanted Blade, and Samura, of course, almost cheated and used Suzaku to heal it back up in this instant. And it was this big chapter really framing around the whole idea of Iori running towards this conflict between Chihiro and Samura. And the two of them were just going back and forth, swinging their swords together, talking about, hey, you can't do this, Chihiro's never going to drop his blade, he is imbuing the Akka power of Inten with Tobimune's Suzaku, and all of these other various things, until this idea at the end of the day of, hey, Iori is here, and Samura realizes this and opens up his eyes, both physically to a way to see out into the world, and also metaphorically almost opening his eyes to being able to live on after this moment. And we ended off the whole last chapter on the whole idea of Samura opening up his eyes and being like, wow, Iori, you have grown. And we start this chapter number 86, Quickening, in that sort of exact same moment, but from another's perspective, of course, as we see what Chihiro's doing during all of this, right? We see that he is gripping onto Inten, his hand is all bloodied and beaten up, of course his left hand is holding on the scabbard pretty much, and his right hand on the scabbard itself, right? And we just see that Chihiro's vision is extremely blurry as he's trying to look in front of him. He's like, oh, wait a second, is that Iori in front of me? Gosh, everything's blurred. With a full powered Nishiki and a borrowed firepower of Suzaku, I finally managed to demonstrate it. Even so, it's just a crack, a mere glimpse. But honestly, it's not any proof that I can destroy the Shinichi with my own power. We see the blood just dripping out of his body. It starts coming out of his nose. Chihiro is not looking good, right? As we see, he's it's not enough. I'm not there yet. Blood draining out of his nose. His eyes are almost rolling back into his head. And Iori sort of looks behind her and is like, oh, wait a second, right? As we see that Chihiro is starting to collapse onto the ground. But Samura, using his abilities, steps in the way and grabs Chihiro, pretty much like putting his arm around him. And we see that he activates Suzaku on Tobimune, goes through, and with the flames of Suzaku, heals up a lot of the area around it. We see that Chihiro is starting to get better, and we even see that Ro starts to get better too. I mean, it even repairs his shattered glasses that Samura completely destroyed, right? And Ro's like, oh, hey, Mr. Samura, right? As all of a sudden, we sort of see, like, he gets a little response to, like, a ver, I guess, coming through, like, his cell phone or something like that, right? But as all this is happening, Chihiro, all of the flames are spreading around him, and his hand is healing up here in the moment. All of his clothes that were in tatters are sort of coming together, and his vision is so blurry as he looks up and just sees the vestige of Samura, and eventually his vision gets clear enough to where he just sees Samura open eye sort of staring down at him. And it's at this point where, man, Samura with eyes open, no scars coming down, he looks so weird. It's one of those things where, like, we have this established character design, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. And now he's opened up his eyes, and it's just weird to look at. It's like, I expect those scars to be there, and, like, oh my god, it's just weird, man. It's honestly a little unsettling, right? Of course, we saw what open-eyed Samura looked like before whenever we got one of those volume extra things of like, oh yes, this was Samura age 18 or whatever. It was something that Hokuzono drew on his Twitter a while back. I'll throw it up on screen right now. But the whole idea of like, yeah, it's just a little bit of a weird thing to look at. Like, his eyes are open. And Chihiro even comments on this being like, oh, Mr. Samura, like your eyes, right? And Samura just says like, hey, you wore me down. It's clear that you'll die before you release your grip on that sword, Chihiro, right? And Chihiro sort of, like, has this, like, vision. He's just, like, looking up. He says, like, yeah, you're right, Samura. I can't let it go because of the memories associated with my father. And I love the image that we just get of Samura here. As he's just like, huh, what? And, again, it is the way that Hokuzono draws faces, and you can tell it's Samura because of the way his hair is parted here in a moment, but if you drew a few scars on that face, I could believe it could be Chihiro, you know what I'm saying, right? But Samura's just like, hey, you two forged it together. As he thinks like, hey, Rokuhira, you're trying to forge a future together. As he says, like, hey, an enchanted blade that destroys the enchanted blades, and you'll use it to destroy the Shinochi. Is that your plan, right? And Chihiro's like, hey, I know I still have, like, a long ways to go in this whole idea, but I'm going to get to that point no matter what. And Samura sort of, like, this looks back in reservation and says, like, yes, I understand. This is just a start. I really do get it. As we just get an image of Chihiro's eyes, and we sort of see, like, the light almost returning to them here in this moment, as Chihiro's just eyes just like there. It's like, oh wow, just like, he's understanding everything and seeing that Samura, his eyes have also been opened up to the light here, right? As Samura also says, like, hey, your swordplay has also come a very long way. As you just get some narration saying, like, hey, turning towards the light, Rokuhira, I'm going to follow your example. As you also said, like, hey, with the intent, Chihiro, I know that you can do this, right? And at this point, Chihiro also just, like, looks past Samura and says, like, hey, but on that note, my swordplay actually improved thanks to your daughter. As we see that Samura now turns around to, of course, confront the big elephant in the room, which is Iori standing behind him. As we see this, and Samura sort of, like, it's a really funny expression that Samura has on his face here on page number 5, as he just, like, turns around, and we just see Iori just staring at him, and Samura's like, oh, hey, like, you've kept up your training ever since then? And Iori's like, excuse me? And Samura's like, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, Chihiro, like, help me out, like, throw me a bone, something, right? And Iori's like, hey, seriously, like, I've grown up, like, duh, like, you abandoned me for years, like, I've had an entire lifetime while you've been hiding away under those false memories and all of that, right? And Samura's like, well, I mean, like, I don't know, right? And Iori's like, hey, and the first thing you want to know is, like, if I've kept up with my training, like, hey, this is none of your business. And Samura's like, oh, hey, like, I'm sorry. As we just see Iori just starts to menacingly walk towards Samura, and eventually just comes through, takes one of her fists, pulls it back, and goes and punches Samura straight into the gut, right? And she's like, hey, I don't forgive you. All this time, my memories of Mom's last smiles, the three of us together, I couldn't even remember forgetting them. As we see, of course, she just starts to cry here in the moment, and starts to just, like, grab onto Samura. Samura's just, like, standing there, very almost uncomfortable. Like he understands the gravity of the situation, but he doesn't exactly know how to deal with it, of course, after there's been a whole lifetime that the two of them have sort of lived on their own away from each other. As Samura's like, hey, I'm sorry, and just goes to hug his crying daughter here in the moment. And we just see that Chihiro sees this image, and a smile just wiggles its way onto his face as he just looks at the father and the daughter. Of course, the father that he's lacked for a large portion of his life, and Iori is getting hers back. And as all of this happened, this is when this chapter just gets even funnier to me, because, like, hey, it's a really nice sentiment. Iori and Samura back again at last. But now we see that the Masumi all appear, right? Of course, we knew that Ro was here, and Sumi and Moku are also, like, now finally getting here in the moment, right? And we see that Moku is giving Ikora a piggyback ride, and Ikora's like, hey, I'm just, like, really intruding here, am I? Like, if this doesn't, like, I don't feel like I should be here, right? And I love how Sumi's like, no, you're not, Ikora, like, this would have ended entirely differently without you here, right? And Moku's like, yeah, man, you're the MVP, like, what can I say? And honestly, if you guys don't know, I do a weekly Shonen Jump show where I pretty much go through and talk about all the series I read on Weekly Shonen Jump. And on there, I choose an MVP, like, who is my favorite character of the week. And for this issue of Jump, I'm almost thinking, like, maybe I should pick Ikora because he is called the MVP here in this chapter. It's honestly just a really fun moment of where they're all like, hey, yeah, what's all this going on here? Like, am I intruding? No, we actually needed you here because if you weren't here, we don't want to imagine how things would be different, you know what I'm saying? But either way, Samura then turns around to all the Masumi and just is like, yeah, I'm sorry, guys, I owe all of you an apology too. And Ro's like, hey, for sure we have a bone to pick with you, but Iori already slugged you once, so we're gonna pretty much call it even for now. And he's like, hey, so does this mean that you're finally ready to gamble into the future? And Samura's like, yes, but first of all, as Samura now, like, pauses here in the moment, as he just has, like, a lot of thoughts going on, like, hey, well, even if Chihiro handles all the eternal contracts, we still have to deal with the Hishaku and all the other enchanted blades, not to mention the Kamunabi traders. All that stuff the pact was going to now cover is all wash. And what I presume what he means here by the pact is the deal that he had made with all of the Hishaku. Like, we saw him talking to Zora here. How many chapters was that ago now? Like, that was, like, chapter, like, 59 or something, which is just wild to think about. Like, that's not, like, over 25 chapters ago. That doesn't even feel real at this point, right? But either way, Samura's like, hey, there's a few things that we need to pretty much tidy up before we can go and do anything, right? And we sort of just get a cut of Iori's face, and also one of Chihiro's face. We now see that he's got some of the more stoic, like, static look on his face, more of a serious grin, almost. As all of a sudden, Rotus is like, oh yeah, the Hishaku, well, then we've got something that we need to get on with. We just received this notice, and the Hishaku are ambushing the Kabunabi headquarters. As you just see, it's this scroll that has emergency alert written on it, and of course, like, the scroll just has all the details on, oh no, the Hishaku are doing things that we don't want them to do at our headquarters right now, right? As we even just get a shot of the face of Zora. It is a very interesting panel that we get here, as we just see Zora's face. I don't know if this is supposed to be, like, he knows that they know now, or really what the whole situation here is, like, if he knows that Samura has broken the deal that they made, or if it's just reminding us, like, yeah, this is the bad guy of the Hishaku, just so you know. But it's just a panel here, it's like, oh yes, this is Zora. But either way, we see that both Chihiro and Samura are sort of alarmed by this, like, wait a second, like, what are they thinking? Are the Hishaku trying to kill the Swordmaster without an enchanted blade? Like, did they intend to subvert me from the start? Like, no. This must have been their backup plan, even so. And Samura is running all of this through his mind, as Chihiro just says, like, hey, Mr. Samura, if we can clear the board of the Hishaku now, then we can talk about what comes next. And as this happens, we just get an image of Iori's face, and it's honestly one of the most interesting panels in this entire chapter. It's almost drawn in a very shaken art style, as we just see, like, Iori's face, but, like, instead of like the normal just like regular queen lines going around it, we see like there's like a bunch of motion there. And honestly, I want to believe this is sort of like how Hokuzono is making us sort of feel like, yeah, Iori just now got her father back, and already he is going ahead and getting ready to fight in another big battle. Even if it's something that's very good and justified, it's still one of these things where I don't particularly like this. And I just love the emotion I sort of feel by just looking at this image and being like, wow. Just the way that Hokuzono made a little few changes to his art style, making it all a bit more shaky and all of that, really just lets us see how Iori is feeling here, right? But as all this is happening, Samura is just like, hey, well, if we go and ambush the headquarters head on, there must be informants on the inside. It's like, you're right. Like, if we go ahead and do all of that, get rid of all the Shaka members, then that will be a huge step forward. As we just look over, as Chihiro is gripping the Intin in his hand once more, he's like, hey, I have no intention of carrying this blade alone. He says, like, hey, Tobimune, your blade was originally crafted for support, Samura, and I need you to use your powers to heal the injuries I am about to incur. Together, we will take care of the Enchanted Blades and the Hashaku. And Moku's like, oh, together. That's a word that you couldn't say before. As we see that Ro comes over, grabs Samura's glasses that he dropped on ground, says like, hey, you dropped these. The light's pretty intense to your eyes, being that you just opened them up, alright? As we just get a little bit of narration of Samura thinking like, hey, you win, all of you. As Samura grabs the glasses, puts them back on his no longer scarred-eyed face, and just says like, yes, we will do it. As now, as we cut away from page 13, we just cut to a panel of the Seitai War in full effect. And whenever I turned the page here, it honestly took me a second to be like, okay, wait a second, like, I see Samura's hand, I see Crow, like, wait, is that a Ruhan? Like, whoa! It honestly took me a minute to realize what this was. And what we see here is just an image of the Seitai War, where all of the enchanted blade bearers were fighting against the Sword Saint. As we just see buildings crumbling apart, all of this wrath and destruction happening around, and the Sword Saint, using the power of Centipede of the Magutsumi, floating on top of a building, standing there, as we just see Aruhas there, holding the Kumeyori in his hands. We don't even see Samura's face, but we just see his hands in the background, holding the Tobimune in the EI White Purity style. We get a very good look, at least on the backside, of who I presume to be Misaka. This is the former wielder of the Cloud Gouger Enchanted Blade, and we can really tell that being that there's like a bunch of electricity coursing through this person's body as we see them here. And we see that he's sort of like holding one hand down. He's not even wearing a shirt, but he's got like these like greaves on his arms almost, like these like leather like straps all around him, and we sort of see like he's like perched up on a little bit of a thing, and like he's holding the blade, and the back of it is like sitting on his neck, almost like how you would carry like, I don't know, like a broom or something if you're walking like a long distance with it. And all the way in the forefront, we see the back of who we know to be Subaru holding his blade, but we don't really get a good look at what he looks like, just sort of like, we sort of recognize that hairstyle. And then the other Enchanted Blade user, who we don't know a name yet for, but I know a lot of people online have been calling her the Pink Bear, just because, like, hey, she's a girl of the group, and we sort of see that she's there, and we can just barely tell off, like, her weird design, like, the little image that we saw there. And this is just, a strikingly interesting image, as what it really reminds me of is the whole idea of, like, this may be the moment, like, because the way the sky is also drawn, it really reminds me to the moment whenever Samura lifted the owl out of the sky during the whole Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel arc, and the whole idea of, like, whenever he lit it and, like, the sky's just illuminated, all of the clouds are, like, gone, it's just, like, the sunlight bearing down. It really reminds me of how Hokuzono drew that the first time, but it's such an interesting panel, just seeing Aruha here, seeing Samura's hands. And of course, getting a good look at Misaka, who we now know is dead, the former user of the Cloud Gouger, or Koregumo, and also just seeing Subaru and the other sword bearer in the forefront of the image. It's one hell of a page turn, that's for sure. It's so interesting, and the whole idea of, yes, they were all fighting together, and Samura was now pushing everybody away, but he's getting ready to help everybody out and fight together once more. It's a really cool image, and I wouldn't say it's the best part of the chapter, but it's definitely a really cool look into what happened in the past, and it's just a really cool 2-page spread. What can I say? But at this point, we now cut to the Kamunabi headquarters. We go to the lowest level, Monitor Room. As we see, this is the room really keen set on looking at the Sword Saint and pretty much seeing what he is up to, right? As we see, one of the Kamunabi leaders has also made it down here. This is the guy with the extended earlobes. We don't know his name yet, so I'm just going to be calling him Earlobes now for the whole reason of I don't know what else to call him, right? But we see that he just enters like, hey, the upper levels are in chaos right now, like, how's everything going down here? And we see, like, 2 of the monitor guys just like, hey, I mean, it really seems like there's chaos up there, but nothing is really amiss down here. As we see this guy's like, hey, do you think that he is picking up on all of this? And Earlobes just is like, hey, I mean, he couldn't possibly be. As we just see, of course, this is the Sword Saint who they are monitoring. And Earlobes like, hey, like, he couldn't possibly be, like, wait a second. He's been locked away deep in this underground prison for 18 years. The pillars surrounding him are basically life support. They provided the organism inside with protection. With such minimal nourishment, he lacks the strength to even harm himself. Unable to bulge, his existence consists of little more than watching the time pass. In the center of a prison of utter nothingness, he has sat in complete stillness for 18 years. In all of these years, he only once uttered a single word at 3:47 p.m. on November 8th of this year. Of course, this is when we saw the Sword Saint say the word Magatsumi is like, hey, oh no, that's the enchanted blade that Kura was using at that point, right? As we just see the Earlobes guy is just like looking at all of this. As we now see the Sword Saint start to stand up. As we see that he utters another 4 words, just saying, oh, the time is nigh. As he stands up here in the moment, we get an image of the Shinichi, of course, which has all the seals binding around it, trying to, like, get it back to a position of, yeah, this can't be used to cause a mass destruction like the Malediction again. And as all this happens, we cut back over to Chihiro and Samura, as Samura's like, hey, I'll take us there, there is no time to waste, Chihiro, and Chihiro's like, hey, understood, let's go to Tokyo. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi, chapter number 86. And, like I said, I think I enjoyed this chapter of Kagurabachi a lot more than the one last week, just for the fact of it is the end of an arc, and I always believe that the end of really good arc chapters are often some of my favorite in anime and manga, is like just the whole idea of like, yes, this is the wrap up to all these big things. And of course, we don't really have too much time to dwell on all of the Iori and Samura stuff. The whole idea of Iori being like, hey, I don't forgive you for what you've done, but also still happy to have her father back. And of course, going into the moment of like, yes, Samura is getting ready to go fight in a battle once more. And yeah, Iori doesn't really look too happy about this. And honestly, being that we now know where the story is going, that Samura and Chihiro are going to go and help out at the Kamunabi headquarters, pushing away all the Shaku. I mean, the last things that we really saw there was the whole idea of Izami is fighting the Samurai Shaku guy along with Ichiki in the training grounds room, or the fight club room, whatever it was supposed to be called. We know that battle is going on, and we know that Hakuri is trying to make it down to one of the enchanted blades or something to pretty much pull them out of there for the whole safety of, yeah, we need to get the Sword Saint or something else out of here so we're not messing. And Iruha just came to his aid as they were facing down 2 of the previous Kamunabi headquarters members, but now they're sort of like, yes, we're actually working for the Shaku the whole time. And that was really the last images that we saw there, and even still, those were like 6 or 5 chapters ago, so we really haven't been there in a while, as we've mainly been focusing on the whole idea of, hey, would you believe this? Chihiro and Samura has been going on. And seeing that both Chihiro and Samura are getting ready to head there, I really do believe that this is the point where Samura probably kicks it. As much as I was really hoping we'd be getting the whole idea of, like, yeah, Samura actually makes it through all of this series, like, at this point he goes and kicks it back and, like, goes off in hiding somewhere. Of course, he's trying to go through, help make sure his daughter has a future to live in, and part of that is fighting in more battles where there's a bunch of more dangerous enemies, and not just Chihiro, who is just trying to recruit his help and not kill him. Now we're getting to the whole idea of, yes, there are very dangerous people there currently. And honestly, I can see Samura probably not making it out of the whole raid on the Kamunabi headquarters stuff. And whenever this is over, I presume we're going to have this, like, big conflict. The Sword Saint's going to get released or whatever, and that's when Chihiro is going to go over and make it to the way of, okay, we now have to go see what these other two sword bearers are about. But that's really just, like, long time, like, expectations away. We still got to get through all the conflict at the Kamunabi headquarters first, and honestly, I can see this conflict taking us all the way to chapter number 100. So, yeah, honestly, what else is there to talk about in this chapter? The Ikora moment I really liked whenever he sort of, like, pops out like, hey, I'm really intruding on all of this, aren't I? And everybody's like, you are, but also if you weren't here, most of us may be dead. There's honestly the chance that could have happened, and also you're just the MVP of all of this. It's honestly a really funny moment, along with going into the whole idea of this small flashback we get of, oh yes, this is a Seitai War. Did you want to know what Misaka looked like from behind? Well, we have a decent enough image now, and just this whole wrath of chaos and just, like, all the sword bearers fighting together. I think together would have been a much better chapter title, and of course, the Sword Saint obviously knows what's going on. He has stood up, and that doesn't mean a whole lot of good things for all of our favorite characters, right? But really, with all that out of the way, I don't have too much else to say about this chapter of Kagurabachi. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really intrigued to be seeing where we are going next time. Are we going to follow Chihiro and Samura as they make it there? Or are we going to roll back the clock a little bit to sort of see, like, yes, this is Izami and Ichiki's fight, and maybe we finish that fight, and that's when Chihiro and Samura enter in to see the aftermath of the battle that has happened here. Or maybe that would honestly be a really cool thing if we open up the chapter of, like, oh no, we see Izami bleeding out on the ground, and Ichiki also laying beside him, because remember, Ichiki is not the traitor, it is Kudo. Kudo is still the traitor. I'm going to die on this hill until there's no hill left to die on anymore, right? And just the whole idea of, okay, they interrupt, see this battle on, like, how it actually unfolded, and like, oh no, the Samurai Shaku ended up winning the battle here, and then we roll back the clock. Do I have any proof that any of this is going to happen? No, but I think it'd be pretty cool if it did happen that way. But yeah, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Kagurabachi chapter number 86. If you want to see my thoughts on Kagurabachi, there's a few different ways you can go through and do it. I do a Kagurabachi review series on the channel here. Of course, that's what you are watching right now. I've been covering this series since chapter number 44, so I've got a bunch of videos. That playlist containing all those videos will be linked down on the description box of this video along on the end card of this video. I'm also part of a Kagurabachi podcast called the Kamunabi Headquarters. It's a show where me and a few other Kagurabachi YouTubers and also just some good friends sit down and talk about this great series of Kagurabachi. Hopefully there'll be some more out soon, and we also need to catch up being that we haven't talked about the last 3 chapters, so we're going to have a mega episode where we also debate the whole idea of, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Chihiro versus Samura fight as much as I should have been, and there are definitely some people in that podcast who are a lot bigger of fans than I am, right? I'm specifically talking to you, Calcan and Karasu. You two, I know we are going to have issues with whenever we record that episode, right? But either way, just thank you guys so much for watching this video on Kagurabachi chapter number 86, and I'll catch you guys next time as we talk about chapter number 87. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week whenever we go in and discuss that and all the wacky and wonderful world of Kagurabachi. But until then, yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Good chapter. I don't know why this chapter is called Quickening. I have no idea in the slightest, but yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231 signing out. Ikora, the MVP.